Hello, my name is Janine Johnston. Welcome to the second in a series of videos on the Old Testament. In these lessons, my goal is to provide a foundation so that you can grasp some of the main ideas in this ancient book, enjoy reading it, and find treasures for your own life. This will happen as you ponder the actions of a living God in space and time. I hope you've already downloaded and printed a copy of the text of this lecture. If you haven't, please do that now. It really helps to be able to read what you hear. Please keep a pen handy so that you can fill in the blanks as we go along. You will need to have your own Bible and may also want to have an English language Bible with you, preferably the New International Version, which is what I will be using. In the first video in this series, we talked about the fact that the Old Testament is the foundation for understanding our world, for understanding what God has done and will do. If we want to correctly understand what is written in the New Testament, we need to pay attention to the foundation. I very much hope that you will value the Old Testament. There are many, many treasures to be found there. We just need to search for them and learn to use them in life. Point number 2 in your notes. Let's talk now a little about the contents of the Old Testament. How many books are there in the Old Testament? 39 for Protestants, 50 for the Russian Orthodox Church, 46 for Roman Catholics. We will talk more about the canon, the list of books accepted as inspired, in Unit 15 if this type of study continues. But for now, we're using the New International Version, which is a Protestant version and has 39 books. The point I want to make here is that no matter what version you use, Protestant, Orthodox, or Roman Catholic, the Old Testament is actually a collection of books. Every library has a collection of books. Are they all of one sort, one genre? No. What kinds of books can you find in a library? You could list many varieties. The ones I think of are language textbooks, Language, language textbooks, theology books, science fiction, detective stories, DETECTIVE, detective stories, novels, poetry, POETRY, biographies, and you could go on and on. The books of the Old Testament also vary in genre. Open your Bible, please, to the table of contents and keep it open for a few minutes. This table or chart was added to the printed Bible in order to help the reader. What else was added? The numbers of chapters and verses, NUMBERS, cross-references, section titles, which are different in each published version, maps, footnotes. All these were added. They are not part of the Bible per se. They are not inspired. Now let's go back to genre or type of literature and discuss this more fully. What type of literature are these books in the Old Testament? The first are historical books, the last are prophecy, and those in the middle are called wisdom and poetry. Usually I encourage people to color the table of contents with a colored pencil. From the book of Esther, ESTHER, the 17th book, from the book of Esther to the beginning, color yellow. That's history. From the book of Isaiah, ISAIAH, to the end, color it red. That's prophecy. and the ones in the middle, blue, that's wisdom or poetry. If you color the page, it will help you to notice right away which type of literature a book is. And why is that important? Think for a minute. Poetry, science books, and a detective story may all talk about sugar, for instance. But if I need to know how much sugar to put in a cake that I'm making, I won't look for information in a poetry book, nor in a detective story, nor in a science textbook. I'll use a book with recipes, a cookbook. So, in order to understand and use a book, we need to know the genre, G-E-N-R-E, the genre of the book. We need to know what type of information the author was writing, what method or style he was using to communicate. This is understandable, but we seldom think about it. Remember, various types of literature are used in order to more clearly express thoughts. C-L-E-A-R-L-Y. Point 3. In historical books, the author communicates facts, F-A-C-T-S. He describes real events and real people. But besides that, he looks for reasons why things happened as they did. He points out the connections between the decisions and actions of people and the events which followed. I can also tell you that scholars acknowledge that it was the Israelites who started this genre of literature called history. Before that, people just listed events. God revealed to Abraham's people that their choices were important. C-H-O-I-C-E-S. They are free, but what they choose has its consequences or results. History looks for reasons why things happened as they did. God taught the Israelites that if they want to receive good results, they need to choose, C-H-O-O-S-E, they need to choose righteousness. In the historical books of the Bible, many things are described. How this world came to be, how God related to people, how he built a special relationship with a chosen people, how he prepared this nation to bring, B-R-I-N-G, to bring the light of truth, T-R-U-T-H, to all other people. The main theme of these historical books in the Bible is that God governs time and history, that he has a goal, and it is a good goal. The second group of books in the Bible is named Wisdom, W-I-S-D-O-M, Wisdom and Poetry, P-O-E-T-R-Y. These books are the opposite of science books. What's the difference? Poetry and wisdom aim to reach the emotions, E-M-O-T-I-O-N-S, not just the intellect. This genre gives a wide scope for thinking. Figurative words are used. Science books do not do this. Science tries to explain everything very exactly and unambiguously. Science tells us that 1 + 1 = 2, and there's no other answer. But poetry might tell us that 1 + 1 may equal 3, and it's left up to us to think how that might be so. Poetry wants us to think further, T-H-I-N-K-F-U-R-T-H-E-R. Poetry wants us to think further or deeper. Its purpose is to touch our feelings, our emotions. It wants to shape our perspectives and convictions. Scholars tell us that in the first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis, there are many, many poetic words. This indicates that the book of Genesis is not a science textbook. If we want to understand what it is telling us, we need to dig deeper than surface facts. We don't need to add something to it, but just see what is already there. Wisdom literature talks about morals, M-O-R-A-L-S, and right living. It invites further thought about the outcome or end result of various actions. It wants to affect or influence behavior, B-E-H-A-V-I-O-R. Wants to influence behavior and help people make better choices in life. A major theme in biblical wisdom and poetry is that God knows about pain and suffering. He is not indifferent toward us and our sufferings. He doesn't do everything that we want, but He doesn't leave us. He understands our feelings, our emotions, our sufferings. He is not indifferent. I-N-D-I-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. He loves us. Although we may not understand what He is doing, He always, A-L-W-A-Y-S, He always does what is really best. Point 5. Now, what is prophecy? This is a special type of literature. Authors of this type of literature often use symbols. Biblical prophecy has two facets, and prophecy is P-R-O-P-H-E-C-Y. The first aspect tells how God evaluates the behavior of the people of that time, B-E-H-A-V-I-O-R. The second aspect communicates what He will do in the future because of that behavior. The main theme of this type of literature is that God guides history, and at the end of all time, He will question everyone about his or her actions, words, and thoughts. The most important part of this lecture is what happens now. If you want to grow, here are some things you can do. Reread your notes. Pay attention to point 2. Color the table of contents in your Bible. B. Read Genesis 2, 3, 4, and 5. We will consider these chapters in future lectures. C. Discuss the ideas presented today and your reaction to them with someone you know. It is this that will prove of most value to you. Don't plan to skip it. The questions in your notes can help you think further and prompt discussion.
Your